You're the person everyone calls when things fall apart. Why? Because you never panic, you never complain, and you always handle it. The world looks at people born between 1965 and 1980 and calls them the resilient generation. But let's talk about what that resilience actually is. It's not a personality trait, it's a scar. You weren't born tough. You were the original latchkey kids, raised in an era where emotional supervision was almost non-existent. You didn't learn to be strong. You learned that your tears didn't have an audience and your needs didn't change the schedule. In the next few minutes, we're going to look at the hidden glitch in the self-reliant brain. I'm going to show you why your pride in never needing help is actually the most painful trauma you carry, and why your emotional detachment was the only shield that kept you alive. It's fascinating to look at where Gen X sits in history. You're sandwiched between the baby boomers, who were raised on rigid traditionalism and suck-it-up mentalities, and the millennials, who were the first to be told that their feelings mattered at every turn. While boomers were often disciplined into silence, and millennials were coached through their emotions, Gen X was simply left alone. You were the kids making your own dinner at 10 years old, solving adult problems while the world looked the other way. Quick question for you in the comments. What was that one adult responsibility you had to handle completely on your own before you were even a teenager? I want to see how many of us were essentially living like mini adults by age 12. Because there was no one there to supervise your emotions during those formative years from the late 60s through the 80s, you did the only logical thing a child can do. You turned them off. Psychologically, this created a deep trauma plus pride combo. You take immense pride in the fact that you don't need anyone. You wear your self-reliance like a badge of honor. But let's look at the cost. When a child is forced to be their own emotional parent, they grow up with a brain that is literally wired to view asking for help as a threat. To you, needing someone feels like losing your safety. You aren't functioning without complaints because you're a superhero. You're doing it because in your world, complaining never changed the outcome. But wait, let's reframe this. The world loves to label you as cold or emotionally detached. Here is the reality. Emotional detachment isn't a flaw. It was your survival skill. Think about it. When you were growing up in a house where your emotional needs were met with silence or a get over it, detachment was your superpower. It allowed you to function in chaos. While the generations before and after you might struggle to keep their cool under pressure, you are the calmest person in the room. You're already 3 steps ahead. But, and this is the part that hits hard, the same shield that protects you from the pain also keeps out the connection. You've become so good at being self-reliant that you've accidentally built a fortress where you're the only inhabitant. So, how do we fix the mental glitch? It starts with this realization. You don't have to earn your right to exist by being useful. The switch is moving from survival to presence. For decades, your value has been tied to what you can handle. The satisfaction you're looking for won't come from clearing another to-do list. It comes from the moment you realize that the supervision you never had as a child is something you can finally give yourself. You can put the shield down. You aren't a failure for having a limit. You're finally becoming a human being instead of a machine. You've spent your whole life being the one everyone else leans on. You've been the fine one for far too long. Maybe it's time to stop being resilient and start being real. If this felt like someone finally looked behind your curtain, then you're in the right place. Subscribe, and let's talk about the things your generation was told to keep quiet. It's time to stop just surviving